Hey everybody, it's Rob Foglia and Jessica Klein with Foglia Properties here at Keller Williams in Nashville, and we're coming to you live with our Friday market update, as well as we're going to dive into when is the time to get pre-approved when you're buying a home. You ready to jump in, Jessica?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. So what we've got pulled up here is we've got pulled up something that if you've been watching our videos, something you may be used to already, and that is kind of watching our market trend, the months of supply of homes for sale in our area. And specifically what I've got pulled up right now is Nashville. And so you're probably used to, if you've heard some of this before, you know kind of what you're looking at. But if you haven't, and this is your first video, real quick, what we want to just point out is that this number really starts to tell us and is our biggest clue if we're in a buyer's market or a seller's market. What this means is we have 3.5 months of inventory. That's a strong seller's market. And what that's saying is if no other homes hit the market, it would take 3.5 months for all those homes to sell based on what's happening right now. Does that make sense, Jessica?
Yeah, and actually, I don't know if we ever talked about it before. Could you give a very short explanation of what a seller's market is and what a buyer's market is?
Yeah, well, the easiest way to put it is who has the advantage. So like a buyer's market is there are more sellers out there trying to sell than there are buyers trying to buy. So that means buyers have the advantage because there's more sellers competing for that one buyer to buy their home. The seller's market is the exact opposite. There are less sellers and more buyers, so that means there are buyers that are out there competing for a property. And so, like just to show, because sometimes the long trend line makes it easier to look at. This is just Nashville basically forever. I mean, going back 12 years, you can see that this was when the market was down. It was quote unquote down. It was a very strong buyer's market. Right here, where we're at about 6 months of inventory, that's considered a balanced market, and you can see that's kind of a transitioning market more than anything. And then what we've been in the last few years has been a very strong seller's market. And it's interesting because we thought that we may be seeing this trend line start to go up into a buyer's market this year, and then with everything that's happened, it's actually gone down, which is surprising. And it stayed as a strong seller's market.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing before we jump into when to get pre-approved, one thing that was interesting when I was just diving into some of these stats that I wanted to point out is how the market can change depending on your area that you're looking in. And so, one of the reasons we wanted to record this video about when to get pre-approved is we've had a lot of buyers recently that have been maybe first-time buyers, or maybe they've been moving to the area, they're selling another home, and they've been like, well, I think my credit's good, I'll wait to get pre-approved. Like they thought about their end date of when they need to buy, and basically they work backward when, and we'll get into some of the timing in just a second. But some of our buyers, a lot of them have been looking in a little bit further out areas than just Davidson County or Nashville, not hours and hours away, but 30, 45 minutes outside, so that they can get a little more home for the money. So what I've pulled up here is the zip code for Smyrna. It's a very, very common, area. It's just right off of I-24. It's super easy to get downtown, so people look at it, and it's the county right next to Davidson County. It's in Rutherford County. And what I just wanted to point out is that if you're looking at the trend line, you can see that on average, we're looking at about 4.2, months of supply that are out there. Again, if we're thinking 6 months is that tipping point, this is a seller's market, a slightly weaker seller's market than what we were talking about in Nashville, and yet it's still a seller's market. But the interesting thing, and why really reach out to us when you're looking to make a move so you can become educated, or even if you just have questions about your market, is that when you really dive deeper into some of these numbers. So like this is Smyrna, everything basically 180 or less, 178, 9 and less. We're at 1.5 months of supply. Like, y'all, that is an extreme seller's market. Like, that's not
Yeah.
strong, that's extreme, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Like that's the homes that you hear that are out there, that when you hear of a real estate agent that gets 20 offers on a home, that's this scenario, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
When we look at kind of the next price point up, 179 to basically 250, you can see it's still a very, very strong seller's market, and basically an extreme seller's market still, just a little under 2 months of supply.
Yeah.
So
Highly competitive.
highly competitive, exactly. So as a buyer, just going back to what we were talking about, less homes, more buyers, that's the scenario. But the interesting thing to me when I started looking at it is if in fact, well, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but if we look at Davidson County in Nashville, that basically the average price point is what, Jessica? Around 350 in that price range,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Depending
Right
on
about
which,
there.
depending on, especially where we're looking at in
Yeah,
Davidson.
which counties you include and all of that. But yeah, 350 is a pretty fair estimate.
Yeah, and so when we're looking here, this is 319 and higher in Smyrna, and it's such a difference compared to what we were just looking at. So homes that were at basically 250 to 320, right here it's over 7 months of
Yeah,
supply.
7 months. That's as crazy, as competitive as 1.8 is, 7.1 is even more competitive the other way.
Yeah, well, exactly, and part of that, honestly, is I think it's seller perception because either they're not being educated to say, well, hey, your $350,000 home in Smyrna, that's not the same as this $250,000 home.
Hmm.
Like there's nothing out here in this price, but there are some homes out here at this price. So just
Yeah.
to think about.
And I was actually talking to an agent outside the area from Cincinnati earlier this week, and she opened the conversation with, "Well, the market's still super hot in Nashville, right? Like everything's just flying off the shelf." And it turned into a longer discussion because it really does depend on what area you're looking at, what price point you're looking at. It really isn't a situation where, yes, everything is just flying off the shelf in 2 days with 18 offers. And obviously there are some areas like that. This is
Some price
definitely
point.
not one of them.
Well, in some price points, because remember, this
Yeah.
is the same zip code. I mean,
Yeah,
you could
exactly.
easily be looking at homes that are, in this price range that are close to 250 that, are that there's nothing out there. That there's 2 months of supply in a neighborhood that's just across the street or across the highway, or not highway, like the main like a Noblesville Road or Sam Ridley in Smyrna, where right here there's 7 months of inventory. And so that's why it pays to know your market and to be working with a real estate agent that can help you understand this. And and especially just to kind of transition it from not just our sellers but to our buyers and how this matters, is say you're a buyer and you're thinking somewhere around here is your price point. Well, just here, let's just type in Nashville again real quick, just so we can get a rough idea. I mean, that's basically this price point. We're thinking up to 335, and here you're at 2.7 months of inventory. So again, a very strong seller's market. Whereas here we're looking at 7+ months, and so it pays to help have somebody helping you to understand that, hey, this is not one size fits all. Every market's a little bit different, and this actually plays very well into when to get pre-approved. So one thing that I wanted to basically bring up is that this is like these lower prices especially are kind of a typical first time buyer price point. Would you agree with that, Jessica?
Yeah, for sure.
Good. At least a lot of our first time home buyers. I know there are first time home buyers that are going to be higher than that and maybe some lower as well. But basically what we're seeing is, and what I've been hearing a lot recently has been a lot of buyers who've been thinking to themselves, well, I'll wait to get pre-approved. My goal is to be in a home by, I don't know, November 1st. And so they'll think to themselves, well, all right, well, if I need to be in a home by November 1st, I can wait until like August to talk to a lender, or September
Right.
even, because they're thinking, well, I think my credit's good. I think I'll be fine.
Yeah,
And
or I'm not ready yet is a phrase that we hear very often from people who aren't ready to get pre-approved.
yeah, exactly. And we actually had a couple of instances recently where buyers ended up having some things pop up on their credit, or just this that happened, that made me think, hey, this it makes sense to start to go into this with our clients and explain why. So, or when I should say, to get pre-approved. And so, like, say for instance, like, let's just walk through a hypothetical that, Jessica, say you're a first time home buyer, you're looking in Smyrna, you're looking at this price point that I've got highlighted here, 2 months of inventory, and you're thinking, well, I'll wait till I find the right home to get pre-approved. Say you found that right home, what do you think's going to happen?
Well, I mean, knowing what I know about the other side of things, as the agent, probably I'm gonna say, okay, well, here's what I want to offer on it. I need to go find a lender. It's gonna take them some time to get my documents, and then we're gonna find out, oh, I have to fix one thing on my credit, and so that'll take another week to get that result back and see how it affects my credit. And then by the time I get around to writing an offer and coming back to the house, it's probably gonna be under contract.
Oh, it definitely will be under contract. I mean, that's what we're looking at in this price point, it absolutely will be under contract, in that week. And even if you didn't have that, something you need to fix under credit, or you have to wait that week, even if you just have to wait a weekend, you go
Yep.
look at a home on a Saturday, and maybe you're working with a lender that's not available on weekends. All of
Yep.
our people are. I mean, I was able to get pre-approval letters this past weekend on a Saturday and a Sunday, so our people are great. And yet, unfortunately, not every lender is that way. And say you're working with a lender that's not that way, and you wait till Monday or Tuesday to get your pre-approval letter, you're going to lose out on that house.
Yeah.
You're
Or
gonna save some
worse, I mean, you're out there, we can go back even farther in the process. Knowing what houses to look at
money.
is almost impossible without having been pre-approved. It's all just a guess.
Oh,
I could
exactly.
go in and say, well, TurboTax and Credit Karma say that I have a 750 and I know that I make a lot of money. I'm good. So I just go out and assume that I can afford a $350,000 house. And, like I'm comfortable with paying that much a month because I've done the online calculators. And so then I go and find this perfect house and I've fallen in love with it. And even in a situation where we have, 7 months of inventory and I have time, I go and talk to my lender and I find out, well, really, I can only afford 225.
Mhm.
So
No,
now
well,
I've fallen in love with the house and I can't really afford it.
well, exactly. And in fact, you brought up something a second ago that I wanted to. That's another reason to basically to answer our question. If you've been watching this, when to get pre-approved, it's immediately. When to talk to
Mhm.
this lender immediately. I mean, don't wait till the last minute. At the latest, somewhere in that 3 to 6 months before you want to be in your home, in that time frame, that's when you should be talking with a lender to get pre-approved.
And
Because
probably multiple lenders if we're being, upfront about it. I think everyone should probably talk to at least two or three people because each lender has different products and can offer different criteria, all sorts of stuff.
Well, absolutely. And that doesn't mean that you need to have two or three people run your credit. If you have one lender run your
Correct.
credit and you have those credit scores, you can go to other lenders and say, well, hey, my credit's a 750, as the example you gave a second ago. What products do you have for me? I'm going to be having this much to put down. And we've got multiple people to recommend to you, too. So if
Right.
you're
Yep.
watching this and you're interested, reach out. Now, but what I was going to get at in terms of the timeline and kind of the when is that without a doubt, most buyers aren't really concerned about this number that I'm highlighting here, the sales price number. They're not concerned about that as much as they're concerned about the monthly budget. I
Right.
mean, that's just what it comes down to. I mean, buyers that we're working with right now, that's what they're saying. I mean, the buyers that we wrote an offer for this week, every one of them has said that. Hey, it's all about my monthly budget. I need to keep my payment here or less. In fact, yesterday we're going to be meeting with a new buyer of ours next week for the first time. Yesterday, when I was on the phone with her, she just said, I want to keep my payments at this. She gave a number. This is where I want to keep my payments. Because a question I always ask our new buyers: what price point do you feel comfortable with? It's never 300,000. It's I want to keep my payment $2,000 or less, or 1,500
Right.
or less. And
Mhm.
that's ultimately what matters to most people. And so it's hard, I think, for most buyers to really understand how the sales price really breaks down into monthly payment when you start saying, well, what's your PMI going to be, and how
And
does
the interest rate.
an interest rate? Yeah, I mean, all those online calculators, they kind of only give half the story. And so if you're not doing this on a daily basis, you probably aren't going to understand how to fill in the blanks of that half the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, like you said, like 3 to 6 months is a great time for it, and probably closer to the 6 months is a great time to start talking to a lender. Even if you're not fully, getting pre-approved, you can get so much good information just from talking to them. And 99% of the lenders out there are more than happy to give, all kinds of information and explain how process works and just make you comfortable with it, and then you can be as prepared as possible when you're really close to wanting to move in.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it made me think of, past clients that we were just talking about before this video that I won't share their names, of course, on here just in case they see it. But a friend of ours, a real estate agent friend from another part of Tennessee, she recommended us to them. She said, hey, I'm selling their home and they're going to be looking to buy a home in the area. Let's get them into something. I said, perfect. And for about 2 months there, where they were trying to sell their home, I kept saying, hey, well, let's connect you with a lender. Here's a lender's information. Let's get you taken care of. And they kept pushing it off and pushing it off and pushing it off. And so the home that they're selling, I believe it's closing this week. I know it was closing in middle of June. So, the home that they're selling though, so long story short, early May comes, they get a contract on that home. And so they're like, okay, cool. Now it's time for us to start looking for a home. So then they start the pre-approval process, which if they had listened to us, and I don't mean to be a, hey, you should have listened type of person, but I want people to learn from the story that if they had, say in March, when we first connected with them, March, February, whenever it was, when we first connected with them and knew that they were going to have a real estate need here in Nashville, if at that point they had reached out to a lender, they would have found out that there was something on their credit score that they weren't aware of. I think it was some sort of medical bill or collection that they didn't even know the bill existed, so it went into collection, and because of that, it dropped their score into the low 600s, and unfortunately, they weren't able to buy a home. So now they're having to rent, they're having to figure something out for a few months, and it's all because of this. Because ultimately, if they had found out about it, say in February or March, they could have taken the right actions, gotten it resolved, and easily had their credit up to where they needed to be come May, so they could have gotten into a home in June. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me of other other conversations we've had on these videos where it's real estate isn't always, I want to do it now, let's do it in the next month, right? Like you can be very proactive, and it makes a huge difference when you're actually ready to make that move. So you can make it this 6-month process where you're preparing, checking your lender situation again, preparing, checking it again, and then you're in an amazing situation when you're actually ready to move.
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, we've got another set of clients that are right now, knock on wood, I hope that everything will be just fine with their loan. But they're basically, their lease is up. They're first-time home buyers, and their lease is up September 1st. So, we're recording this video middle of June. That's about 2.5 months. And this is around the time frame where we normally start looking at homes. Because if it takes a couple of weeks to find the right home, say we're, early to middle of July, that we're finding the right home, writing an offer, well, that allows us to close in 30 days and give them a week or two to move into the home. You see how the timeline is working out? Well, I connected them with the lender about a month ago. That was the time actually that I had gotten connected with these buyers. And so anyway, I got them connected with the lender, and they had an initial conversation, said, hey, don't run my credit yet. This is how much I make though. My credit's good. And so, the lender said, yeah, as long as their credit's good, they'll be absolutely fine. The price point they're looking in. And yet, now we're at that crunch time for them, where if they had run their credit back in early May, they would have known, hey, I've got that doctor's collection bill that I was just given as in the previous example, or whatever it is that they can get rectified and then, boost their credit. And even if it doesn't stop them from buying a home, like even if they had perfect credit and they had that one little bill or whatever it is that pushes them down, say from the mid 700s into the 600s, well, then maybe they're looking at a different type of loan or a worse interest rate. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we should be proactive. And that's just we just want to get this across to y'all. Is it what I'm saying making sense? I feel like I'm rambling a little bit.
No, I think it makes sense. And I think looking at all these graphs is really helpful just to understand the micro markets within our area and different price points. And if I had to give one takeaway, it would just be proactive and don't be afraid to talk to lenders.
Exactly. Well said. Be proactive and don't be afraid to talk to lenders, because, especially even if you just talk with one at the beginning, like you can shop around later. Talk with one at the beginning just to make sure everything's going to be fine. And, that way, because, great lenders are there to help and come from contribution, just like we do with our videos and with our communications to our clients. Like we're here to help and come from contribution, and great lenders, the ones that we recommend, they do the same. So yeah, anyway, back just, so I think that's about all we've got. I did want to just share with everybody and just throw the offer out there to you that just like we were looking at here in Smyrna with the different price points and how the market is different with different price points, and just like how we were looking in Nashville, and the market's a little different here, compared to Smyrna and the different price points. If you're interested in finding out about your specific price points, whether it is your home, and you want to know, hey, do I have a ton of leverage right now? Because if you're a homeowner in Nashville and you think your home is worth 200 or less, kind of have a lot of leverage right now at about 2.3 months of inventory. And if, and so if you're thinking that, like, if you're like, hey, I'm really wondering where this is at, give us a call, either shoot us a text or give us a call, 615-591-5665. You can PM us on here as well. You can comment below, although we prefer a PM, honestly, just to have a real conversation with you. But comment below if you're interested in finding out, hey, what does the market look like in this micro market inside of Middle Tennessee? Because we'll get you taken care of. Again, not only as a seller, as a buyer too. Like if you're thinking, hey, I want to buy a home in East Nashville. Here, let's just since I'm freestyling, say I want to buy a home in East Nashville, and I'm thinking my budget's going to be between $300,000 and $400,000. Well, how do things look? According to this, it actually looked pretty good for a seller. Pretty tough as a buyer, I should say. And so, anyway, just wanting to throw that offer out there. So if you're just wanting more information, give us a call, reach out. We're here to help. So I think that's all we've got. Anything I missed, Jessica?
Nope, I think that's it.
All right, cool. Well, I appreciate y'all checking this out. Same time next week, we'll be back with another market update, some more great information. Give us a shout if there's anything y'all need. Thank y'all so much.
Bye.
Bye.